Morning. It's just after 10:15. We're a little bit late. You can see I'm in my green screen studio today because the stuff on the back didn't come on the way that it meant to. But hey ho, Matthew. When the autumn statement gets tough, the tough get going.
Yes.
Or the tough get prospected even. Tough get prospected. I think that was the title I plopped in there.
That seems to be.
Thoughts, my friend. Thoughts. What we're talking about today?
Well, yes, we have yet another change in our political, economic kind of environment that is beyond the control of most of us. The only thing that, of course, is within our control is how we respond to it or react. And there is, of course, a difference between simply reacting to something and actually responding to it. Because when you react, it tends to be knee-jerk. It tends to be something which is maybe not quite as measured as it could be. Whereas when you respond, it kind of implies that there's a little bit more intent and intentionality behind what we're doing here. So I guess a little bit of today is a little bit around what would it mean to respond rather than to react to the changing political, economic, sociological environment that we find ourselves in. Because there's no doubt about it. Times are tough. Maybe not quite as bad as the papers seem to be trying to talk us into. Although there's no doubt at all we are in some kind of a recession. But times are tough. UK inflation, the 12 months up to October, 11.1%. That's the highest level in 41 years. Let's not talk too much about the stuff that's plaguing us all, but we can't ignore it. Electricity, gas, other fuels, costs have risen by 90%, 90. Food prices, they're up 16.2%. I mean, that's huge. I mean, you take the quarter, July to September, wages on average in the UK have risen, but only by 6.6%. There is no way that people are not worse off right now. And then you've got last week's autumn statement, which, to some extent is a return to some sort of, I suppose, normality, at least sort of some kind of fiscal orthodoxy, you might call it. But it's about tax rises. And yes, there's going to be some spending cuts as well. And if I was a cynic, I'd note that most of the spending cuts and things have been bounced till after the next general election, like it's going to make it somebody else's problem, probably. But, you are looking at some tough times. But as the old saying goes, every opportunity comes gift wrapped in a problem. So what are the opportunities? I guess that's the big question. Roy, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's to say leaving till the end of the next general election. It's like that note that was left. Sorry, mate, the money's all gone.
Yeah, long gone. There isn't any right now. There hasn't been for some time.
Yeah. No, there hasn't. But it's say if it's like if the public sector catches or starts sneezing, everyone else catch a cold because they spend a lot of money, and that's what keeps businesses. It rattles through the world as further business. If there's cuts, businesses get affected, and the knock-on effect is those businesses can't invest, they can't hire, they struggle to give pay rises, they might reduce people, and if we just sit there passively and let all this thing happen, the pie just shrinks. Our available pie of market will shrink, and it's going to shrink different for other people than it's not going to shrink the same for all people. That's the point I'm making. And it's like a couple of years ago, if you was a PPE manufacturer who had to work hard to sell stuff, all of a sudden overnight that you could just hang up and the phone would ring again. And so the economic, the political played into their hands. But if you was some other businesses, you naturally really suffered. If you was a coffee place where people used to walk in, doors are shut, you've had it. So these sort of step changes in the market affect different companies in different ways, and it's all out of your control. And what are your choices then? You can sit back and watch it all happen and scream, woe is me. Or you can be proactive, and I think you mentioned the word earlier, respond. And what does that look like? What does responding look like to today? What sort of things can businesses do to respond?
Well, I think there's a couple of things here. The first thing is, the biggest difference you can make in anybody's world is more to do with the questions that you ask than the answers you give. And one of the things that we look at is how do you, I suppose, access what that response is going to look like. And of course, it's going to be slightly different for everybody. There's some commonalities which we'll touch on today, but the key thing, I think, is to sit down whenever you have a significant step change in the landscape around you, something that's external to you, something you can't do anything about, and just one of the things that we encourage our clients to do is to ask yourself the question, why is this potentially the best thing that's ever happened to my business? And sometimes you look at it and you think, well, that's barking mad. That's got to be one of the craziest questions that's ever been asked. I mean, we did this at the start of the first lockdown. You sit there and say, well, why is this the best thing that's ever happened to my business? And, when you're an in-person, face-to-face training and coaching business, the first answer to that is, well, it's not. It's an absolute disaster. But then you very quickly move past this and think, well, actually, what this could do is it could increase our bandwidth, because by having to do everything virtually, by having to do everything remotely, actually what you do is you increase the scope for talking to people across much wider geographical areas. So you can actually get to light up training programs much more quickly. You can be much more agile. So actually, there are opportunities within any problem that you're facing, potentially. So when you're dealing with these kinds of challenges, that's probably not a bad place to start.
I think it's a very powerful question. It's in the bottom there. Why can this economic change be the best thing for my business? And I think if every business who's watching this looks at this and writes down why it can be the best thing for my business, I think it just opens up avenues of thought that might have eluded you before. I think it's a really, really powerful question. When anything good happens, why can this change be the best thing for my business? If anything bad happens, why can this change be the best thing for my business? And if nothing's happening, how can this economy, as it stands now, be the best thing for my business? And I think just opening up that channel of thought is really, really powerful.
It is, and just to give a little bit of scope around that, when I do this exercise, because we walk our talk, we do what we teach, and we teach what we do. When I do this exercise for myself, the more challenging the environment, let's take the current political and economic landscape, or you could take the start of lockdown, whatever. If you write that question down, physically write it down at the top of a piece of paper, and then start writing, the first half page of what comes out of your head is going to be garbage. Maybe even the second half page will as well. But by the time you're getting onto the second page, you'll start to come out with some things that might make a little bit of sense. You'll see the seeds of something there. And it allows you to access the creative problem-solving part of your brain in a way that maybe in a normal kind of board setting or a normal meeting setting is harder to achieve. And if you get all of your top people to do a similar thing, and then you collate the data and maybe sort of even start to bring some of the ideas together to create something that's even greater than the sum of its parts, well, then you have the seeds of a really strong strategic approach to responding rather than reacting to the situation.
I think whatever happens, hope and wait when things are changing is not a strategy. And I think what you can detect if what you're doing, if when you look at how you bring business into your organization, if hope and wait is the answer, we need to do something else, because we're just following the tide of the economy. And the conversations that we have, if any possible answer from prospects can be, so what? We've got to change what we do there, but we've got to change. We've got to do something. And what sort of, I've said in this thing, when the autumn statement gets tough, the tough start prospecting. How do they define that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I suppose, whilst it would be a kind of glib to say sales cures all ills, it is, there is some element of truth in it, which is that ultimately you might still have some problems, but it's a damn sight easier to face problems when you've got some convertible business. And if the size of the pie is contracting, well, for you to stand still, you've got to get an unfair slice of the pie that you haven't previously been getting. And so that means, to some extent, without wishing to sound too greedy or grasping about it, you've got to eat somebody else's lunch. And there's only one way you can do that proactively, and that is to go out and specifically work on your prospecting, work on not just your marketing program, which is typically a little bit more about the wait for the inbound leads. You're creating opportunities, you're creating a positioning statement, if you like. You are getting your name out there, getting your name in front of people, being front of mind, all those kinds of good things. But especially if you're in the business to business space, if you're in any way in consultative selling, if what you do is a transformational product or service, that is a service that takes your clients on a journey from where they are today to where they need to be, and you are the difference that makes the difference for them, you've got to get out there and be talking to people that you haven't previously talked to. And that means proactive prospecting behavior. You can't get past it. Every business relationship that ever started anywhere of that nature started with two strangers talking to each other. If you're not in the business of talking to strangers, you're not prospecting. It means you're not going to grow your business. It means that other people are going to eat your lunch first. And unless you're happy to do that, unless you're happy to shrink a little bit in a shrinking economy, and maybe you've got a great big war chest, maybe you're comfortable with that, that's fine. But for most businesses where they want to at least maintain or possibly even grow where they are, they're going to have to get out there and really kind of get in front of people.
I think, very nicely explained. And I think that's when we look at B2B business, we have all of our mindsets that we were given when we were a child, which are big hurdles to get over. We were always told that, don't talk to strangers, stranger danger. And then we were told that it's rude to interrupt, and children should be seen and not heard. And it's very bad manners to talk about money. And when we're in B2B sales, part of our job is to communicate with strangers, interrupt them, ask them questions about money. And so everything we're wired to do is being thrown out the window, because it's no good for sales. And I know certainly that was one of my big things, because we are interrupting people when we're prospecting. But we both, if we've got something that could be of value, we are letting the side down if we don't share that knowledge, because every business has got something they can bring to help the economy. And if we don't tell anybody, shame on you. And we know in recession, we hear of businesses failing. And now some of that is that they're not getting the money in that they should do, or they've oversold, or people aren't paying the bills. But actually a lot of it is that their business pipeline has dried up, not because it's dried up, but because someone else has eaten their lunch. And in this world that we've now got after COVID, where having these sort of Zoom conversations is more common, competitors you've never heard of can be appearing in your market and taking away your clients. Whereas before they wouldn't drive that far or fly that far. They're now only a Zoom click away from eating your lunch. And that's scary, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Very scary. And again, that speaks to, I suppose, the sorts of things that lead you to react rather than to respond. And what does reaction mean? It means, well, fight or flight. And in fact, it's not just fight or flight, is it? It's fight, flight, freeze. And maybe even, and we saw this at the airport last week when things had gone horribly wrong, flock. People tend to act like when they see like a large group of people all doing the same thing, milling around like headless chickens. You tend to go, well, that's okay, because everybody else is doing it, so it must be fine. But if everybody else is doing something idiotic, but looking around and going, well, at least I'm in company, it doesn't make it any less idiotic. So fight, freeze, or flock. And what does freeze look like? Well, freeze looks, sit down here and hope that this too shall pass. But then it doesn't, and somebody else eats your lunch. Flight looks like I'm going to run away from this. I'm going to batten down all the hatches. I'm going to cut all the non-essential spend. And what does non-essential spend look like typically? Well, I'm going to stop training my people because having them upskilled during a difficult time, that can't possibly be useful, right? Really? Okay, that's idiotic on the face of it, but never mind. And then you've got marketing. That's non-essential spend, yeah, because we don't want to do anything where we might actually get our brand out in front of people and growing the business in any way during difficult times. Again, that does seem a little bit like self-sabotage, but and what does fight look like? Well, sometimes if it's not measured, fight can actually look like something really stupid, like we're going to have to slash all our prices. We're going to have to discount. Which means basically you're giving away a load of margin in a declining market, which sounds like a bloody stupid idea as well. So unless you're actually thinking about what you're doing and you're measuring your response, and it's a response rather than a reaction, chances are you're going to do something stupid. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. All I'm going to say is that panic has changed the world many, many times, but never for the better.
I did see something come through on my email this morning, which amazed me. A well-respected lobbying organisation came through today with a 15% discount on. They called it a Black Friday discount on memberships. What? People who you do not expect to do things like that are surprising you. And yes, we have to do something different, but working at that end of the funnel is not what we've got to do different, because they say sales sucks, doesn't it? Well, only if you've got your mouth around the bottom of the funnel and you're trying to suck it through. And when times are bad, we tend to be at the bottom of the funnel or in the middle of the funnel, working hard to try and drag things through. But there seems to be less going on at the top of the funnel. Let's, they say things like, well, let's get through what we've got. Let's close that down. Let's just drag that lot through. And the people in the middle of the funnel are feeling the same pains and fears and pressures that everyone else is feeling. Our job is, we've got to do some work there. Our job is to be at the top. The funnel is a hungry thing. It's like the firebox of a steam train. You've just got to keep on shoveling coal into it to keep this train going. If you stop shoveling coal into it, it's just gonna, fart and stop. And so our job is working at the top, not in the middle, and it's certainly not sitting at the bottom sucking by giving discount. I remember one of your phrases, which always made me laugh. What was it? I don't mind taking the horse to water. Do you want to finish that off? Because I can't bring myself to do it.
Oh man, yeah. Look, this is actually, I'm going to have to give credit to it. This is actually from my stepmother. She came up with this with her years ago, which was, look, I'll take the horse to water. I'll even shove the horse's nose in the water, but I'm damned if I'm getting around the other end of sucking.
I still love that.
It's a great phrase whenever you're struggling to get your information across to somebody, and yeah, that's. I mean, it's quite brutal, but what can you say?
Hey, well, we talk here like we're offline, but online, right?
Yeah.
So our job when the market. Oh, sorry, mate. We're cross purposes. Say again.
Oh, wait, no, you go for it. You're next.
Oh, it's all going to hell. And actually, we've done quite well. It hasn't gone to hell for 21 minutes, so that's okay. So some of the things that people can do about this is look at how they bring new business in and their activities for bringing in new business and the results. Now, one of the challenges that we can have is that we go, this activity isn't bringing in this result, therefore we must stop it. Sounds reasonable. But I think we have to take a step back and say, within this arena, are we doing the right things in that activity to get the results that we need, to get the leads, the outcomes that we need? So not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And we can look at the difference between correlatory and causality. If this activity isn't yielding anything, is the cause of it not yielding anything the fact that that we're not doing the right thing, or enough of the right thing, or we're doing something different in that arena? So we just, what's the cause of this not working, rather than just ditching the whole lot? And again, we will see a lot of that. We will see. If you're a florist, when times are bad and a lot of your business is providing flowers for reception, you're bracing yourself, because one of the first things you do, get rid of the flowers in reception. I mean, it doesn't make any real difference. But I've seen it. I've walked into receptions going, it looks a bit glum, and the person who used to be sitting there isn't sitting there anymore. It's like, well, what's happened? So doing enough of the right thing and actually being proactive and planning what's working well, what should we do more of, what should we do different, or what should we do better at each one of these stages. So it's going to be very interesting times. And but if the market's shrinking, we need to prospect more. Thoughts?
No, I agree. I mean, I think when you're attribution modeling and you're saying, where do my sales actually come from? Let's do more of the stuff that really works. I think to your point, it's really important to work not just where the sales came from in terms of like the last touch point, which very often is with a person or with a website or where your particular business, but actually looking at the wider context of how they found out about you in the first, where they built up a sense of your credibility and your trustworthiness. Because nobody employs a plumber to fix a tap. What they do is they employ the plumber they trust to fix the tap. And some of that comes from the credibility. Some of it comes from their reputation. Some of it comes from customer experience, previous experience. Some of it comes from reviews. Some of it comes from just the way that the plumber's up and the way that he or she actually talks to you, and you gain a sense of their credibility and their ability to do the job just purely from what they're saying and the way they're saying it. And I think that's where you can make the biggest difference, is in your actual kind of first person interaction, because that's the bit that's difficult to do. It's the difference that makes the difference very often, though. And so if you're wanting to kind of really focus your efforts anywhere, it's focus on that sharp end stuff. And where a lot of that sharp end stuff goes wrong is through either hiring experienced business development people, experienced salespeople who are really, really, well versed in this whole world, and they've maybe had 20 years of experience. But what you do when you look at their CV is you realize that actually they've had 20 jobs in that 20 years, which means they've had 1 year of experience but repeated 20 times, which means they're actually not that great. Or you've got people
who didn't get any better, else he would keep swapping jobs, right?
Exactly right. Or and this is the more common thing, you've got managers who maybe they were great salespeople in their own right. They had the magic dust, whatever that magic dust was. So you promoted them into the position of manager. And it turns out that whilst they were a great salesperson, they're a bloody awful manager, because it's a completely different skill set, which means they find themselves actually back on the tools doing what they always used to do, but now doubly stressed out because they're also now responsible for everybody else's quota as well. And everybody else is kind of either feeling the pinch because the manager is losing his or her mind I nearly said lost their shit. Sorry, losing their mind every 5 minutes.
Don't swear.
Better not. I'm glad I avoided that. They're losing their mind every 5 minutes and basically kicking off and just basically making everybody feel bloody miserable. Or alternatively, they're actually taking on everybody else's problems. So you've either a revolving door of talent as everybody leaves very quickly, or you've got a load of learned helplessness with a bunch of people going, oh, how do I do this? And the boss ends up doing it for them, or both, which is not
both. Yeah,
it's the end of management problems actually being a lot of the issues here.
Yeah, when people got a monkey on the back and want to throw it on your back, that's a thing, isn't it? And I'd like to. The subject of our mastery today is how many new effective conversations should your sales team make every day in order to hit their target? How many unique, effective conversations should your salespeople make every day, week, month, in order to hit their target? And there is a sales cycle time. If you don't know that, I would suggest you find that out and work it out. If you're struggling to work that out, Matthew or myself would be very happy to help you with that in order to hit your targets, because it's times of recession. And it really is, the weak will die, the strong will thrive. It's going to be horrible out there, and we just have to make the best of it and look at why can this economic change be the best thing for my business. Getting to the end now, Matthew, how can they contact you?
If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can do so via email, mdh@sandler.com. You can phone me, 9724. That's 07715269724. Alternatively, you can just connect to me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to have a chat with people. And I'm also running a management boot camp on the 30th of November. So I've got 2 places left for that. It's going to be in Congleton. In person, quite an intimate fireside chat style of approach with these boot camps. I like it to be a relatively tight number of people, but a lot of the things that I was just talking about with the management challenges that actually lead to a lot of the problems that you see day to day, we'll be addressing those in that boot camp. Good investment of your time and your money if those resonated at all.
Yeah, and I've got things bleeping. Can you hear these things bleeping on my computer, or is this just me?
All right. You crack on. Tell everybody how they can contact you.
Right, so contact me, roy.johnson@sandler.com. My number is 07-867-525-868. Come the new year, we're going to be running a 21st century prospecting course. How to prospect in the 21st century to maximize what you do. Now, here's the thing. If you don't like prospecting, don't come. If you want to prospect and help your business and you want to grow the business while times are tough, this is the thing for you. I'm not going to see you for a couple of weeks, am I? Or maybe we'll do one a little bit later.
Who knows? Yeah, that's fine. We'll no doubt we'll be putting some content out over the course of the next few weeks. It might be us separately rather than together, but there will be some good stuff coming over the next few weeks.
Oh, we'll have a chuckle. So, Matthew, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Oh, no, that way. Goodbye for them.
It's a goodbye.
We're off ski. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Bye-bye.